you drift into the hush of a beginning. Here, in the watery warmth of a womb, sound is softened to heartbeat, thumps, and distant rhythms. You do not yet know you exist. You are a quiet gathering of intention, cells dividing like dancers in a slow spiral, performing a choreography passed down through billions of years. There is no rush. There is only becoming. The womb is not a place of answers. It is a question held in flesh. Your cells multiply, not with awareness, but with deep obedience. Each one contains the same ancient script, DNA, coiled like sleeping poems inside the nucleus of every cell. It is this code, written in 4 simple letters, A, T, G, and C, that decides what you will be, where your eyes will sit, how tall you might grow, and how your lungs will take their first breath. And yet, that script can be rewritten. Somewhere far from this womb, in white-lit laboratories and glass-windowed research centers, scientists have learned how to hold the pen, or rather the scalpel. They call it CRISPR, a name that sounds like a crackle of electricity or the snip of sharp scissors, and in a way it is both. CRISPR is not born from human hands alone. It began with bacteria long before you, long before cities or languages or thought. Bacteria too have enemies, viruses that invade their cells and try to take control. To protect themselves, bacteria evolved a way to remember those invaders. They stored pieces of viral DNA inside their own genomes, like mugshots on a wall. Over time, they learned how to use those mugshots as blueprints for defense. When a virus returned, CRISPR molecules would seek out the matching DNA and slice it apart. Humans watched and wondered, could we take that mechanism and use it ourselves? Could we program CRISPR to search not for viral enemies, but for broken genes, genes that cause disease, pain, or early death? Could we guide it gently into the womb, before life has fully unfolded, and ask it to fix what nature has written in error? In theory, yes. You rest here now, untouched by edits, forming slowly according to a plan drawn without intervention. But in another womb, perhaps a few years from now, or maybe already, another version of you might be sculpted by intention. A flicker in the DNA could be corrected, a risk erased, a trait enhanced. What does it mean to change a future before it begins? CRISPR is not magic. It is not perfect. It is a tool, a remarkably precise one, but still a tool. It can make a cut at a chosen spot in your DNA, like slicing a thread in a tapestry. Scientists can then paste in a new thread, hoping the pattern continues without flaw. But sometimes, the threads unravel. Sometimes, the change ripples outward in unexpected ways. You float on, unaware of these tensions. Outside your amniotic world, arguments unfold like storm clouds. Should we use CRISPR on embryos? Should we touch the genetic code of future generations? Some say it is dangerous, that we do not know enough. Others say it is our duty to ease suffering, to offer a healthier life to those not yet born. There is truth on both sides. The womb does not take sides, it simply waits. Inside it, you grow, heart beating, limbs budding, nerves weaving their quiet nets of sensation. You are the result of an unedited script, with all its brilliance and all its flaws. And yet, imagine a world where sickle cell disease is no longer passed on, where children do not inherit the pain locked into certain genes. Imagine parents choosing not eye color or height, but freedom from a cruel mutation that once darkened the family tree. CRISPR offers this, not as a promise, but as a possibility. The artist's brush hovers, not yet touching the canvas, waiting, and still you grow. Your brain begins to take shape. Neurons stretch toward one another, guided by chemical whispers. This is where potential lives, in the tangled branches of a forming mind, where nature lays the foundation, and nurture will later build the walls. Even now, long before you speak or think or choose, your biology listens. The genes you carry will shape your hunger, your resilience, even your sense of risk. But biology is not destiny. You are more than your code. You are the unfolding of chance and choice, the fusion of evolution and experience. CRISPR cannot determine who you will become. It can only alter the stage on which your story begins. And what of the ethics, the whispers of future dilemmas? Who decides what traits are worth changing? Where is the line between healing and enhancement, between compassion and control? Science walks this tightrope with cautious steps. You drift, unaware, as your fingers form, tiny and curled, each part of you shaped by a recipe billions of years in the making. And in some places, those recipes are being revised, not erased, just tweaked. A letter replaced, a risk reduced, a silence given sound. The future of CRISPR is still being written. You too are still being written. And as you float in this warm ocean of possibility, a question stirs, quiet but certain. If we can change life before it begins, how do we choose what kind of life to create? It is not a question with a simple answer, but it is one we must ask gently, like a whisper in the dark. For now you are untouched. You are entirely your own, and that too is sacred. Outside this womb, the debate continues, hopeful, cautious, unresolved. Inside you continue to grow, the cells divide, the code unfolds, and somewhere just beyond your reach waits the next wonder. If we can touch the code of life, can we also rewrite what it means to be human? You begin, as all things do, small, smaller than your own breath, smaller than a single cell. You drift in a sea of beginnings, where molecules dance in a quiet rhythm. This is the place where life arranges itself, where instructions are not spoken but written in the curling double helix of DNA. Imagine DNA not as a cold mechanical code, but as a soft parchment unrolling inside you, a living scroll written in 4 simple letters, A, T, C, each letter a whisper, each word a potential. Every cell holds the story of you, told again and again with remarkable accuracy. But sometimes, stories are interrupted. In the ancient realm of bacteria, long before your time, there were intruders, viruses that pierced and corrupted. To survive, bacteria learned not just to defend, but to remember. They took fragments of those viral invaders and tucked them into their own DNA, like soldiers placing enemy flags on a wall, reminders of battles fought. These sequences became known as CRISPR, clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Not a machine, a memory, a quiet archive of molecular warfare. Over time, bacteria developed a partner, an enzyme named Cas9. It moved like a scout and a blade, guided by these fragments to seek and destroy matching invaders. This was precision born, not of malice, but of survival, a soft kind of intelligence, remembering, recognizing, reacting. And then one day human hands reached into this microbial diary. They found not just a defense system but a tool. With reverent curiosity, scientists asked, if bacteria can edit DNA to remember, could we edit DNA to heal? You now watch, quietly, as CRISPR-Cas9 becomes a scalpel of astonishing grace. It glides into a strand of DNA and pauses, searching not with eyes, but with alignment. It finds its target, a broken gene, a faulty switch, and gently snips. A cut so precise, it's as if the genome sighs in relief. In laboratories lit by the soft hum of machines, this memory of bacteria begins writing a new future. Sickle cell anemia, cystic fibrosis, genetic blindness. Diseases long thought unchangeable are now being rewritten at their roots, not masked, not treated, but edited. Like a typo found in a manuscript passed down from generation to generation, suddenly corrected with care. And yet you feel a weight, because to edit a story is also to bear its consequences. What happens when we move from healing to enhancing, from necessity to desire? You imagine a child, not yet conceived, a future whispered into being by strands of possibility. What color will their eyes be? Will they be tall, or fast, or brilliant? Will we choose not just who they are, but what they are for? The line between therapy and design begins to blur. CRISPR is not evil, it has no will, but we do. So the question circles you like a gentle wind. Can we carry the weight of such precision? Will we use it as a gardener tends the roots or as an architect reshapes the soil itself? In the forests of our DNA, CRISPR walks softly. It doesn't crash through branches. It prunes with care, but even a small cut can change the course of a tree. And what of the seeds? In China, twin girls were born edited before birth, their genomes altered to resist HIV. The world paused. Scientists debated. Ethicists wept. Was this hope or hubris? You feel the stillness of that moment, the knowing silence of something profound, and perhaps premature. For even when done with intent, the unknown ripples outward. One change here may shift another there, not just in body, but in generations to come. CRISPR, after all, doesn't only touch one life, it whispers into lineages, into futures unseen. And yet you return to the simplicity of the original idea, a bacterial memory, a natural tool that defends, remembers, and survives. Maybe that's where we must begin again, not with dominance but with remembrance. That science is not conquest, but conversation, not the power to dictate, but the wisdom to listen. As you rest within this thought, you feel the hush of potential. The genome is not a blueprint, it is a garden. CRISPR does not build, it tends, and like all gardeners we must ask which weeds must go, which wildflowers must stay. The night deepens, and you feel the pulse of possibility slowing. You lie beneath stars whose light has traveled for millennia. Inside you, ancient sequences drift like stardust. Some protect, some remember, some we are only beginning to understand. And just as CRISPR edits the lines of our biological poetry, you wonder what else might be rewritten, not in genes, but in choices, not in code, but in care. The page turns quietly. Somewhere in a cell, a protein still patrols, carrying an old memory, looking for the familiar face of an invader. But you are dreaming forward now, and in the dream, a deeper question waits. If we can edit life's instructions, what else might we learn to reprogram, perhaps even time itself? You begin this chapter inside your cells, not in thought but in presence, feeling the pulse of something deeper than breath, deeper than heartbeat. It is the soft hum of your DNA, not a static code, but a living score, a melody written in loops and twists of genetic notation, humming quietly inside each of your 50 trillion cells. Imagine this melody as an ancestral song, sung over countless generations. Each note is a gene, each phrase is a trait. Curled inside that elegant double helix is your height, your eye color, your vulnerability to illness, your sensitivity to light, your capacity to love, to remember, to fear. The music is old. It has traveled from fish to mammal, from ape to you. Some notes were added through mutation, little improvisations, others silenced by accident or preserved like sacred refrains. Every life form sings its own variation, a riff on the universal theme, and you are a new verse, unfolding softly in time. But something new has entered the concert hall, a tool, a needle, a scalpel made of silence and precision. CRISPR, it does not sing, it edits. You watch now as scientists, gentle, curious, unsure, hold this instrument like a violin bow over the genetic staff. CRISPR-Cas9, a molecular machine borrowed from bacteria, was once a tool of immune memory. Now it is reimagined as a way to cut DNA, precisely, efficiently, repeatedly. Like a musician editing sheet music before the performance. You hover closer, a glowing strand of DNA floats in fluid light. Cas9, guided by a strand of RNA, seeks its target, a match in the melody, and when it finds the precise bar, it snips. Not randomly, but deliberately. A pause, now the cell's own machinery rushes in to repair. But this is not just repair, this is potential. In that space between the cut and the healing, we can change the tune. We can silence a gene that causes disease. We can insert a new note, one that resists viruses or enhances memory. We can rewrite our biology, and suddenly the melody is no longer solely ancient. It is contemporary, intentional, editable. You wonder, what is it like to edit your own script, to remove a note you never liked, to correct a line you inherited with pain? Could you change sadness written in your bones? Could you make your child immune to the same sorrows? The promise glows like a sunrise on wet stone. CRISPR has cured mice of muscular dystrophy. It has reversed blindness in lab-grown cells. It has snipped HIV from human genomes in petri dishes. Each discovery a soft chord, played in hope. But the melody, you realize, is not just yours. It is collective. You are not a solo instrument, you are part of a symphony. And the implications of editing one note may echo through the entire ensemble. You feel the tempo shift. What if we choose to edit not for healing, but for preference? What if we silence the discord of diversity? What if we enhance only what we admire, and forget the quiet strengths hidden in imperfection? A society that favors one melody over another may drown out the harmonies of difference. And what of the hands holding the bow? Who decides what gets edited? Who chooses which traits are worthy of preservation? Is it a parent, a government, a market? In ancient myths, Prometheus brought fire to humans. In modern labs, we bring the tools to rewrite life. Both acts shimmer with danger and promise. CRISPR is not magic, it is chemistry. But in your mind, it flickers like myth. A power that turns disease into memory, and memory into design. You return again to the molecular scale, to a single cell in a developing embryo, where CRISPR has made its mark. This cell will become a child. This child will carry a change unknown in any human before. It is a quiet transformation, invisible to the eye, but profound. Yet even as we sharpen our tools, there are notes in the genome we do not yet understand. A silence we dare not disturb, for the genome is not a piano with labeled keys. It is a rainforest of sound, where the chirp of a single gene may set off an echo across the entire ecosystem. You breathe in slowly. The question is not just what we can change, but whether we should, and how often, and for whom. The melody of life is more than data. It is memory, complexity, chance. You sense the pull of the next chapter, for CRISPR is not the end of the song. It is a new movement in a larger composition. And beyond the genome, beyond editing, a deeper mystery remains. What is consciousness? What makes a mind emerge from the matter of cells? If we can write the body, can we one day write the self? You lie quietly, listening to the last fading notes of this chapter, soft, unresolved, like a violin string still vibrating after the bow has lifted. And somewhere in that stillness, the next question waits to be heard. You lie still beneath the hush of stars, your breath slow and even. Tonight, we step gently into the stream of life, the quiet flow of inheritance, where time carries traits like pebbles rolling downstream, shaped by current, accident, and age. This stream has always meandered slowly, its changes random but beautiful, a process sculpted by evolution over millions of years. But now, a hand has reached in. A tool precise and deliberate stirs the waters. You are floating in this river now, the current tugging softly at your limbs. Each drop carries a story, an eye color, a heartbeat rhythm, the curl of a hair. You see the ripples caused by nature's hand, spontaneous mutations, a dance of DNA that decides who we are. Most float harmlessly past. Some lodge into the banks of our being, changing everything. But what if we no longer waited for the current to shift on its own? What if we placed the pebbles ourselves? That is the story of CRISPR, a tool forged from bacterial wisdom, now held in human hands. A molecular scalpel, small but mighty. It listens to a guide, a whispered sequence of RNA, and with quiet accuracy, it seeks its target. It cuts, and in the cut, there is possibility. You drift deeper into the stream, into a cell not yet born. Here DNA coils like sleeping vines, wrapped in layers of potential. A human embryo, just days old, 8 cells, perhaps 16, a whole life folded within those early whispers of division. And now, the sculptor arrives. CRISPR slides in silently, reading the code, one letter at a time. It pauses, finds the flaw, and snips. Then comes repair or replacement, a new letter swapped in, a mutation removed, a disease averted, a future rewritten. You feel the water swirl as this change ripples outward, not just through one child, but through generations yet to come. For when you alter the germline, the DNA of egg or sperm or embryo, you are not just editing a person, you are editing a lineage. The weight of that quiet truth presses gently against your thoughts. Would you change your child's fate if you could? To erase cystic fibrosis, or sickle cell anemia, or Huntington's cruel touch? To remove the shadow before it ever falls? You turn slowly, in the river and the current carries you through questions without answers. Some call this hope, others whisper caution. The science is astonishing, but so is its reach, for not all edits are acts of mercy. What begins with healing could drift toward design. A taller child, a sharper mind, a face sculpted to fit tomorrow's ideals. Where is the line between medicine and modification? You picture a fork in the river, one side wild and winding, the other trimmed and tidy, reshaped by unseen hands. Which world do we step into when we begin to choose who our children will be? In the laboratory, the embryo rests in a dish not yet implanted, not yet a person in law or breath. But within it sleeps a lifetime. And now, within that life, we are placing new stones. The water stills for a moment. You see ripples echoing far into the future generations, walking through lives, touched by a choice they never made. Will they thank us? Or will they wonder what was lost? Science cannot answer these questions alone. It offers the means but not the meaning. For meaning is shaped by values, by fears, by dreams, by the kind of world we hope to build, not just through science but through soul. CRISPR is a mirror, not just a tool. It reflects our desires, our boundaries, our humility, or lack thereof. It asks us who we are when no one is watching, and who we wish to be when others inherit our decisions. In the slow night of thought, you feel the stream's motion again. You realize the edits we make today are not just biological, they are ethical, emotional, even spiritual. To guide this river is to carry great care, to move with intention, not ambition, and yet the current does not stop. Research flows on, countries debate, scientists test, parents dream. We are already shaping the stream. As you drift further, you hear the soft murmurs of global voices, some urging progress, others pleading pause. The laws vary, the questions deepen, and through it all the embryos wait in dishes, in dreams, in decisions still to come. A silence lingers in the water, now not empty, but full of possibility. In this stillness, you wonder, what does it mean to love a future that has not yet arrived? To protect it, even as we reshape it. Above you, the stars reflect in the current. They do not judge. They have watched Earth's life evolve for billions of years. They have seen changes beyond number. And now, they see us with this delicate tool, deciding what should stay and what should be rewritten. You exhale slowly, the river cooling your fingertips. You are not the scientist. You are not the embryo, but you are the question. The wanderer, the watcher, the one who must decide what kind of hands should guide the stream. And just as the current begins to turn, just as you glimpse the next bend in the river, you sense another question taking shape. What happens when our changes leave the lab and enter the wild living world, to be continued in the next chapter? You lie beneath the hush of stars, wrapped in the slow rhythm of your own breath. Around you, the world softens. The moonlight traces gentle arcs along the walls of your imagination. Tonight, you drift toward the genome, the deep, quiet code that hums beneath every living thing. And in that code, a new editor stirs. CRISPR, a word like a whisper, a flicker of precision in the dense forest of life. It doesn't crash in like thunder. It arrives like a scalpel, still, purposeful, impossibly sharp. You imagine yourself shrinking, folding in and in, until you are smaller than cells, smaller than strands, smaller even than the spiral of DNA. Down here, it is not language that rules, but pattern, not speech, but structure. The genome is a story written in 4 letters, A, T, G, and C repeated and reshuffled for billions of years. And now, for the first time, you or something acting in your name can write back. CRISPR is a tool, yes, but more than that, it is a promise. The promise that the future need not inherit the errors of the past. That mutation once random can be sculpted. That disease once a sentence might be edited out like a misstep in a song. It began as many things do, in bacteria, tiny warriors, fighting off viral invaders. When attacked, they remembered their assailants, storing fragments of the virus in their own genetic archives. And when that virus returned, the bacteria summoned CRISPR, a precise pair of molecular scissors guided by memory. Now in our hands, those scissors are sharper, and their aim is truer. Guided by RNA, a searchlight in the dark, they roam the vast genome, seeking out their target. And when they find its snip, a cut so clean, so exact, the DNA flinches and repairs, sometimes perfectly, sometimes differently. You float through scenes of silent wonder, a child born without the shadow of a fatal disease, a heart that beats stronger because the flaw that once haunted its rhythm was never allowed to grow, eyes that see, lungs that breathe, skin that heals, all rewritten before birth. And yet beneath the awe, a question murmurs. Is precision always wisdom? Is control always care? You drift past a laboratory, white coats, blue lights, cool air humming with ambition. You see scientists, gentle and cautious, staring into the coils of possibility. You see others eager, expectant, holding visions of designer traits, taller, stronger, smarter. The line between healing and enhancement is blurred, between care and control, between compassion and conquest. You float now toward a clinic not far from here. A child is born, no fanfare, no flourish, just the quiet cry of a beginning. But inside this child's cells, a story has been altered, not by chance, not by nature, by choice. What was changed? A mutation erased, or a future rewritten? The answer is quiet and unfinished. Because CRISPR is not just a tool of science, it is a mirror held to our values, to our patience, to our restraint. You pause beside a strand of DNA that has just been cut. It curls like a wound. But wounds, if tended well, become stronger than before, and if not, they fester or wander. The cell begins to repair. You watch, holding your breath. Will the healing be true? Will the repair bring peace or complication? That is the power CRISPR offers, not just to edit the body, but to gamble with futures. You drift again, this time through time itself. Years pass like shadows. You see therapies blossoming, rare diseases fading, once terminal diagnoses dissolving like fog. You also see disparities widening. Who has access? Who decides what to fix, what to perfect? In the distance, a whispering grows louder, from philosophers, from ethicists, from parents, from people like you. They ask not only what CRISPR can do, but what it should do. And you lie in the space between those questions, where science meets story, where hope meets caution, where love, the messy, imperfect kind, hesitates to reach for perfection. Because sometimes our flaws are not flaws at all. Sometimes they are history's fingerprints, evidence of endurance, proof of unpredictability. And beauty too lies in the unscripted. Still you understand the dream of erasing pain, of softening harsh fates before they take root, of rewriting destiny with a gentle hand. And maybe that is the balance we must find. To wield CRISPR not like a blade, but like a balm. To write not over nature, but beside it. As you lie there, beneath the drift of stars, you let the thought settle. Precision can heal, but it can also define. And whatever we define, we take responsibility for. Forever. The scissors are in our hands now. The question is not just where to cut, it is where to stop. You feel the world exhale a long, thoughtful breath, and somewhere in the quiet, a new question stirs. If we can change what it means to be human, what should it mean to remain human? You turn gently toward that next wondering, the space where biology meets identity, and in that turning, you fall slowly toward the next idea, not with fear but with a listening heart. You lie back, your body still. As the world around you softens, you drift into the quiet edges of thought where stories form slowly, like dew on grass at dawn. Tonight, your mind drifts to a moment in time not so long ago when something irreversible unfolded under hospital lights in China. A moment where science crossed a threshold, not with a roar, but with a whisper that rippled across the planet. The year is 2018. You are not there, but you feel the tremor of it, not in the earth beneath your feet, but in the subtle way the future blinked and turned its face toward you. A man, a scientist, steps into a press room and says words that rearrange the night sky. "I have edited the genes of two twin girls," he says. The world pauses, breath caught in its chest. You too hold still. This is not the story of a technology. This is the story of a moment, a breath between what was and what now cannot be undone. Gene editing is no longer just theory or tightly controlled laboratory trial. It is, suddenly, living in two tiny children whose names are Lulu and Nana. Two beating hearts carrying not only the genetic changes intended for them, but the questions, fears, and hopes of an entire species. You do not see the girls. Their faces are protected, their names perhaps even altered to guard their privacy. But in your mind, you imagine them cradled in blankets, unaware of the storm they've been born into. Their genomes, edited with CRISPR-Cas9, a molecular scalpel, sharp enough to cut and replace letters of life's code. Their cells, now carrying a tweak to the CCR5 gene, a small molecular change intended to protect them from HIV. That's the stated aim. But beneath the surface, like currents below a still sea, deeper questions churn. You float through them now, one by one. What does it mean to edit a human embryo? To write into it a future it never asked for? To choose for someone else, before breath, before voice, before even thought? The scientist believed he was doing good, preventing suffering, advancing medicine. He believed perhaps that this would be his gift to the world, a demonstration of courage, vision, and care. But the world did not see it that way. You feel the collective shiver that moved through scientists, ethicists, and parents alike. The headlines weren't celebratory. They were cautious, angry, alarmed. You listen as the voices rise, not in rage, but in stunned caution. We are not ready. This was done in secret. Where was the oversight? What happens if we are wrong? And you feel something deeper, the sense that a boundary has been crossed not just in biology, but in story. The story of us, of how we grow, learn, fail, evolve. That story now contains a twist too sudden, too daring, one that skipped steps in its telling, because it was not just the act, but the way it was done, the secrecy, the lack of transparency. The failure to wait for global consensus, a breach of trust between science and society. And like all breaches, it echoes. You lie still, floating through this ripple in time. The silence around you is like the silence in laboratories after the news broke. A silence filled with questions. You remember what CRISPR really is: a tool, precise and powerful. A way to cut DNA, the instruction manual of life, and rewrite it. In plants, in animals, in theory in humans. It offers astonishing possibilities, the chance to cure genetic diseases, to prevent suffering, to reshape the biological future. But with such power comes not just risk but responsibility. That responsibility, you feel now like a weight pressing gently against your chest. What does it mean to edit the code of life, not to fix what is broken, but to shape what might become? Where is the line between therapy and enhancement? Between healing and control? The scientist's action wasn't just bold, it was lonely. He acted without the harmony of shared agreement, without the chorus of cautious collaboration. And so the world responded not with applause, but with a lull in trust. Still, the girls are born. You think of them not as a symbol, but as children, as people. Their futures are uncertain not because of any flaw in them, but because of the unprecedented nature of their arrival. No one knows what changes might emerge in their bodies, or in the generations that follow. No one knows what it means, long-term, to alter the CCR5 gene in this way. Some studies even suggest that mutations in that gene may carry unexpected consequences for immunity, for brain function, for longevity. You breathe in, slowly, and then out. This is not the story of condemnation. It is the story of complexity, of moving faster than we can fully see. You feel sympathy not just for the children, but even for the man who acted too soon. Because behind the headlines, you sense his hunger to make a mark, to do good, to not wait for permission from a world that hesitates. But science must be both brave and careful. And in this case, it was not. You return to the present, to the soft hum of time around you. The scientific community responded with swift clarity. Condemnation. A call for stronger global standards, a redoubling of ethical discussions. Laws were revisited. Guidelines rewritten. Funding paused, and in that pause, a kind of silence returned. You wonder now where Lulu and Nana are. Are they laughing somewhere, running through a schoolyard, asking questions about stars? Do they know what their genomes hold, or what decisions were made before their birth? Will they become symbols, or simply people, seeking quiet lives? You may never know, and perhaps that is how it should be. But one thing you do know, the story is not over. The echo of 2018 still resounds not with fear, but with reflection. It invites you to think about the future, not as a race, but as a shared walk. One slow enough to see the path ahead, and gentle enough to listen to the world as you go. You imagine the next chapter of this story, not one of scandal, but of learning, of returning to the roots of what science is meant to do, to explore with humility, to help with care, to dream with caution. You rest your thoughts on that shoreline. The wind in your mind begins to slow. And yet, somewhere beyond this moment, another idea stirs. If we can rewrite our genes, what else might we rewrite? Not just in bodies, but in the stories we pass down, the destinies we thought were fixed. And so you drift onward into the next question, into the possibilities that come. When you begin to edit, not just life, but legacy. You lie back and close your eyes. The world grows still around you, like the hush before a snowfall. Inside that hush, you begin to drift, not outward but inward, past the layers of the self, back to a place you've never been, and yet somehow know it is a place before choices, before breath, before even being. You imagine an embryo, just a few cells nestled in warmth. It is not yet a child, not yet a voice, not yet a person in the way we understand persons to be, but it is possibility, pure, unspoken, unformed, a tiny vessel carrying the promise of a life, waiting to unfold. And now imagine, floating above that embryo, are hands, human hands, careful and precise. They are not harming, they are not healing, they are editing. Using CRISPR, they snip and patch the language of life itself. A base pair here, a base pair there, like quiet gardeners, rearranging the roots before a seed can sprout. They are changing what this embryo might become. And here you pause, because suddenly the air feels dense with questions. Can someone give permission before they exist? Can the deepest kind of consent, over your body, your mind, your fate, be offered by someone who is not yet? You breathe gently, let the weight of that question sink in like a stone into still water. Consent, in the world you know, is sacred. It is what protects the fragile boundary between self and other. You give it when you say yes. You withhold it when you say no. You are taught that without it, even the gentlest touch becomes an intrusion. But an embryo cannot say yes. An embryo cannot say no. So when scientists alter its genes to prevent disease, to improve chances, to shape a better future, who speaks for the silent, who decides what better means? Is it the parents, the doctors, the lawmakers, or the hope itself? You drift further, deeper, through the ethics that swirl like mist around this choice. CRISPR offers something new, not just the ability to heal but the power to design. It's no longer only about fixing what's broken, it's about shaping what might be, but shaping without asking, shaping without knowing, because how can you know what a life needs before it has begun? You think of a river, long and winding, whose course you've never seen. What if someone upstream builds a dam, re-roads its flow, changes where it ends? Does the river mind? Can it? Will it ever know what it was supposed to be? And yet, some say, why not remove suffering before it begins? Why not prevent pain, rather than cure it later? You understand that, you feel the compassion in that idea, but still there's a murmur, soft and persistent, beneath it all. A life edited before birth has no memory of the choice, no voice in its own becoming. It is a life arranged by someone else's idea of good. What if that idea is wrong? You imagine a child, grown from that embryo. They live, they laugh, they wonder. Maybe they thrive, maybe they don't. But someday they ask, did I choose this? And the answer will always be, no. That no is a quiet thing, but not a cruel one, because behind it lies love, the love of parents hoping to protect, the care of scientists trying to understand. But even love cannot answer every question. It cannot rewrite the nature of consent. It can only try its best with what it knows. You breathe again, slower now. Maybe the deeper question isn't just about genes, but about trust. Can we trust others to shape our beginnings, to pick our traits, our risks, our paths? And if we can't choose our beginning, do we still own the rest of our story? You think of seeds scattered by wind, growing where they land. No seed chooses its soil, no sapling selects its sun, but still they grow, still they reach. Perhaps being born always carries a kind of unchosen trust, a leap into a world built by others. CRISPR simply makes that leap more deliberate, more precise, but no less mysterious. You return again to that embryo, so small, so quiet, so full of everything that might be. You imagine speaking to it, not as a scientist, but as a gentle whisper in the dark. I don't know what you'll become, you say, but I hope you'll forgive the choices made for you. I hope they were made with care, and I hope, someday, you'll make your own. And now, with a softness that feels like reverence, you let the embryo drift from your mind. The question still echoes, can someone consent before they exist? But now it feels less like a riddle, and more like a meditation. Not a problem to be solved, but a space to sit in, to wonder, to feel, because some questions aren't meant to be answered, some are meant to keep us human. And as you breathe in the quiet, the next thought arrives like the first light before dawn. If we shape the beginning, what responsibility do we carry through the rest? You float gently through the long river of time, where life does not rush, but unfolds one quiet moment at a time. In this place, there is no clock, no destination, only the slow shuffle of nature's cards. You can almost hear them, rustling softly in the hands of something vast and blind. These are the hands of evolution, not hands like yours, but more like wind and water, pressure and patience, shaping life without a blueprint, without foresight. Nature shuffles, deals and waits. A mutation here, a silent failure there. Most hands are losing hands. Most never make it far. You drift lower, into ancient seas, where the first fragile membranes closed around flickers of chemistry, the first hand dealt, no plan, just chance. A bubble survives, another bursts. Somewhere, one begins to copy itself awkwardly, imperfectly. Evolution smiles, though it doesn't know it's smiling, trial and error. Now rise, just a little, millions of years pass, like ripples. Fish breathe water, then one crawls onto land, a limb stretches, a lung fills. Leaves reach towards sun, wings fold into feathers, brains branch, like trees, roots of thought, deepening. Every change is a roll of cosmic dice, no dealer, no audience, just the rules of the game. And you are one of the hands evolution played, the product of billions of decisions made by no one, for no reason, but beautifully honed by time. Your eyes see color because ancient creatures once danced in shallow seas of light. Your fingers hold tools because ancestors once reached into the dark, hoping to grasp something solid. Everything you are is a story told without a narrator. But then, something shifted. One day, life gained the power to look at its own code. Not just to wonder, but to read to understand. DNA became not just inheritance, but language. We began to see how the cards are dealt. And then, we learned to stack the deck. CRISPR. You hear the word gently, it hums like a scalpel in the mind. A tool, precise and calm. It doesn't shout, it clicks, edits, silently corrects. It doesn't guess, it knows. With CRISPR, we became the dealers. Imagine a gene curled like a sleeping spiral. Inside it, instructions so ancient they remember the first spark of light. CRISPR slides in quietly, guided by memory, and snips, deletes, inserts, reseals. The genome, once sacred in its chaos, becomes editable. A child may no longer carry a deadly disease. A crop may resist drought. A mosquito might forget how to carry malaria. Each edit, a stroke of design on the canvas of life. It feels like magic. It feels like control. But you pause, float, breathe in the tension beneath the surface. What happens when the slow game of chance is replaced by precision? What happens to the wildness, the unpredictable beauty of evolution, when design becomes default? Somewhere, a bird loses its color, not because of nature, but because someone preferred white wings over blue. Somewhere, a tree no longer twists in the wind, because its shape has been chosen, not grown. When we edit genes, are we improving life or flattening its poetry? You glide over imagined futures, not yet written. One world glows with health, its children spared from pain, its fields golden and thriving. Another lies still, perfect and sterile, where all difference has been filed away like errors in a spreadsheet. The line between healing and controlling blurs. Nature, for all its chaos, never asked what life should be. It simply tried endlessly, softly, without judgment. But we ask, we decide. And the weight of that decision presses lightly against your chest. You think of a deck of cards. Evolution plays endlessly, never knowing the rules, never folding its hand. But now, we cut the deck with purpose. We choose the cards we like. The game has changed, and in that change, something deep within you stirs not fear, exactly, but caution, reverence. You feel the need to pause, to listen, to ask, what is lost when randomness is removed? Not just mutations or failure, but diversity, surprise, the slow sacred unfolding of traits, shaped not by preference, but by persistence. You begin to wonder if the beauty of life lies in its unpredictability, in its refusal to be planned. And yet, there is still pain, still suffering. CRISPR holds answers evolution could never dream of. Children may walk who once could not. Forests may grow where once there was drought. Diseases may fade like distant storms. To refuse this power is to ignore possibility. But to use it blindly is to risk becoming architects in a world that was once a garden. So you sit between two truths. The wild grace of evolution and the quiet precision of design. Neither is wrong. Neither is right. They exist like tides, one slow and ancient, one new and sharp. Can they coexist? Perhaps the future is not about choosing one or the other, but about learning how to let them dance. Evolution, the improviser. CRISPR, the composer. Each guiding life, in different keys, different tempos. You are floating still. The water around you holds silence and possibility. You realize this moment. This pause is part of the new game, not a break in the journey, but a step in it. Because even now, the question remains, how do we hold this power without losing the wonder it arose from? How do we remember that life was once wild, and that maybe it still should be? Last lines, transition to next chapter. Somewhere in the quiet, you wonder if we keep editing life, will we someday edit ourselves out of the story? And what does it mean to be human, when even that can be redesigned? You are walking through a quiet forest, each step softened by fallen leaves. The trees arch above you, ancient and observant, their silence older than science. In the hush between your footsteps, there's space to wonder, and this is where the world finds itself now, in a moment of breath, of pause, of stillness, not for lack of motion, but for reverence of what's to come. All around the globe, the voices of scientists rise not in celebration but in caution. A breakthrough has emerged, glittering with potential. CRISPR, the gene editing tool, so precise, so powerful, it seems like something borrowed from myth. But this isn't mythology, this is the present, and in the present, power without pause can rush ahead faster than wisdom can follow. The forest path curves gently, and you follow, slower now. Somewhere, a leaf falls. Somewhere, a gene is cut and stitched. The parallels are quiet, but real. What does it mean to touch the very threads of life? What does it mean to decide what kind of humans will exist tomorrow? In China, a whisper becomes a roar. A scientist announces the birth of gene-edited children, twin girls, their DNA changed before their first breath. The world stirs, not with triumph, but with unease, not with applause, but with questions. The announcement is not met with admiration, but with alarm. You sit on a moss-covered stone, and the weight of that moment rests with you. Around you, the trees say nothing, but the silence speaks. A moratorium is proposed. The word itself feels like a breath held, a collective inhalation, a call to pause, to step back from the edge and consider what lies beneath our feet. Scientists, ethicists, philosophers, and citizens gather not physically but in principle. Across nations and institutions, a question echoes: should we stop, just for now? Just until we understand more clearly what we are beginning to do. You think of a river frozen in winter, not stopped, not dead, only still. Beneath the ice, movement continues, but gently. A moratorium is not the end. It is the season between intentions. The International Summit on Human Genome Editing convenes. In calm conference halls and through quiet Zoom screens, voices rise not in protest, but in plea. They ask for caution, they ask for rules, they ask for the world to move together, not apart. To hold this fragile future with shared hands, not with scattered ambition. And you, listening, can feel the fragile edges of the conversation. It is not only about science anymore. It is about who gets to decide what is normal, who gets to choose which traits are worth keeping, and which are to be swept away. It is about equity, justice and history, about eugenics and fear, about love and the irreducible wildness of the human experience. You walk again, deeper into the woods. The light filters through, in softened patterns. There is a stillness here that holds meaning. In this silence, you imagine a world where decisions are made slowly, where power bows to humility, where the tools of transformation are handled like sacred things. The moratorium, if adopted, would ask for a global agreement: no editing of embryos meant for pregnancy. Not yet, not until rules are made, not until consequences are understood, not until the world is ready, truly ready to bear the weight of designing human life. But even in the pause, questions bubble. Can such a moratorium be enforced? Will every nation agree? What if some forge ahead in secret, or out of pride, or out of desperation? The forest grows thicker, and you feel the tension of paths diverging. Some scientists argue that a moratorium is necessary, a lighthouse in a storm. Others worry that it may slow progress, allow inequities to deepen, or simply be ignored. The future tugs in many directions, and no compass feels fully certain. Still, the pause is valuable. In that pause, new voices are invited. Patients, parents, poets, pastors, people who are not usually in the laboratory, but whose lives will be shaped by what the laboratory decides. The circle widens, and in that widening, something sacred stirs. You find a clearing. The sky opens above. The ground is soft beneath. This too is part of science, the still part, the listening part, the part that remembers we are not gods but guests. In the quiet of the moratorium, the world has a chance to reflect about accessibility. Will these tools be for everyone, or only for the wealthy? About responsibility. If a child is born with edited genes, who is accountable for their future health? About diversity. Will our edits erase what makes humanity richly varied, or will they honor it? CRISPR's promise is not just about curing disease, it's about potential. But potential cuts both ways. A knife can carve art or harm. A flame can warm or destroy. So we pause, and in that pause, you breathe. You sense the weight of the question, not can we edit the human genome, but should we? And if so, how? And when? There is no single answer, no simple rule, just the ongoing unfolding of human thought, like petals, like spirals, like DNA itself. In the pause, old voices are remembered. The mistakes of the past, of forced sterilizations, of racial pseudoscience, of unequal treatment, are not distant memories, they are warnings. Warnings carried into the present, like old stones in a pocket. You walk again. The trail is softer now, worn by reflection. You imagine the next steps, a framework of international regulation, a declaration of shared principles, an agreement that some doors once opened cannot be easily closed, and perhaps that is the most powerful part of the pause, the awareness that once we begin to shape human inheritance, we shape not just biology, but meaning, who we are, who we become. The sun tilts lower, the shadows stretch, the forest is quiet, but not silent. The air holds the murmur of wind, the echo of the past, the heartbeat of the possible. You do not have answers, no one does, but you carry the questions like lanterns, and in this chapter of stillness, those lanterns matter. Because to pause is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the breath before the leap, the silence before the word, the dusk before the dawn. You reach the edge of the clearing. The forest will end soon, but another path awaits, one that moves from ethical caution into the deeper layers of identity. And as you take one last look at the trees behind you, you wonder if we can now write our future. Who holds the pen? You are standing at the edge of something vast, not a cliff, not a horizon, but a moment suspended between what has been and what might come. The air around you is still. You breathe it in, and it feels ancient. You exhale, and something new begins. This is the nature of now. It balances delicately between past and future, like a tightrope stretched across time. And as you walk it, gently, breath by breath, you carry the weight of choices, not just yours, humanity's, the whole of us. Tonight you think about CRISPR, a word that sounds like a whisper of possibility. It began in bacteria, unnoticed, a simple trick of memory that helped a cell survive. Nature, quietly clever, recording the virus that once tried to kill it. And now, with careful hands, we've borrowed that trick. We've reshaped it into a tool, a way to edit the script of life, letter by careful letter. You picture DNA like a storybook, billions of pages folded into every cell, written in a language older than speech. With CRISPR, we hold a pen that writes not in ink, but in life itself. We can erase a curse carried for generations. We can silence a gene that shouts too loud, or awaken one that has long been sleeping. But this chapter is not just about what we can do, it's about what it means to do it. You sit quietly in that thought. The science is extraordinary, but it's not the science that keeps you awake, it's the echoes. You wonder what it means to touch a code that will ripple forward into lives not yet lived. When we change a gene in a child before they're even born, we aren't just healing, we're planting a flag in time, saying this and not that. You think of future children, not one, but many who might never carry the weight of a disease their ancestors bore. You imagine lungs that breathe easier, hearts that beat stronger, eyes that see without pain. It feels like kindness, a gift, gently given. But even in the stillness, you feel the tremble of uncertainty, because every gene does more than one thing. A tweak here may soothe one trouble, but what else might shift beneath the surface? If we remove the trait for one illness, do we also remove a spark of resilience, of creativity, of something we never thought to measure? Genes are not switches, they are chords in a symphony. When we pluck one string, the sound that follows echoes through the whole composition. And beyond the science lies something harder to name: ethics, values, what we believe is fair or good or natural, who decides what counts as a flaw, who chooses what to fix and what to preserve. These questions do not sleep, even as the body lies still. You imagine a family soft light, a quiet room, a decision before birth, not to cure a disease, but to change a trait, maybe height, or memory, or something more subtle, like temperament. The line between healing and enhancement begins to blur. The question becomes not just what we do, but why and who we do it for. You rest in that tension. It's okay not to have answers. CRISPR has given us power, yes, but power always arrives with its twin responsibility, and unlike a fire or a flood, this responsibility grows silently. It does not shout. It hums beneath the choices we make today. You look again at the word CRISPR. It once stood for a cluster of repeats in DNA, but now it carries dreams and debates, hopes and hesitations. In labs, the technique continues to evolve. Scientists fine-tune its precision. Trials expand. Children born with repaired genes begin their lives, unaware of the change, unaware that they carry not just health, but history. Because what we edit today, they will inherit tomorrow. You consider this legacy, not just of biology, but of intent. The future isn't waiting passively. It is built, strand by strand, by the decisions made now, by the courage to say yes, and the wisdom to sometimes say not yet. Perhaps the real gift is not in fixing every flaw, but in learning how to hold complexity, to look at the story of life and choose carefully what to change and what to simply witness, with awe. You imagine a time far ahead, generations down the line. A child, healthy and curious, running fingers along the leaves of a tree you've never seen. They will never know your name, but they might live a life made better by your restraint, your reflection, your willingness to ask the deeper question before reaching for the sharper tool. That is the echo. It moves quietly, beneath the noise of the world, not in headlines, but in hearts. Not in moments, but in lifetimes. You return to your breath, in and out. The present hums. It is a quiet laboratory. Every act, every word, a small experiment in future making. You are not alone in this. All of humanity walks beside you, holding the same question in 100 forms, just because we can. Should we? CRISPR is not the answer. It is a mirror. It reflects what we value. And sometimes the boldest act of science is not the change itself, but the pause before it. So tonight you drift gently in that pause. You hold space for both wonder and worry. You acknowledge the beauty of what's possible, and the solemn weight of possibility itself. You listen, not for noise, but for what might come after.